a little while ago, I was perusing Instagram, as you do, and I came across a product called Tonewings. And this was a product that would add mass to the inside of your shell. And I've always been sort of curious, had a sort of hunch about mass and drum shells. I ended up doing 2 sessions for this. The first session I went to Drumatic, and it was my plan to sort of loosely follow the approach that I've taken with my other drum videos, where I'll sort of measure a control and then I'll make the changes in the drum and then measure those changes. And I had totally planned to do that, and I didn't even think about the length of the lug screws. And basically, the length of the lug screws was not long enough. So in order to make the Tonewings fit, I had to remove the lug gaskets, the little plasticky bits that sit behind the lugs. And I did the test. So the first video is those tests, but then on reflection, on coming back, I couldn't sort of work out what the change was. Was it the Tonewings, or was it the fact that I'd removed the lug gaskets? So I decided to remove all of the lug gaskets from the kit and then do the tests again. And that video will be coming next week. So, what have we got going on? I'm using my Drum as Well kit. This drum, there's going to be a separate video on this drum. I had Tristan here really cut the edges on this for me. This is it's a mad drum. It's a 14x10 Slingerland Tom that I converted in 2015 at the request of Steve Mackey into a snare. So I've now converted it properly with the help of Tristan. I think the vintage in the kick drum, a couple of these ones, max control, regular set for studios. I'm going to try these 2 in this snare. These in the floor tom. I've got four of these. And then the mini ones, I'm going to try in the rack tom. And so we're going to do the whole kit. So I'm going to tune the drum to where I think it sounds great without these. I'm going to write on the lug where each lug is tuned to in a frequency, take it in half, take off just one lug without changing the tension on any others, then put it all back together, put the drum back together, retune it to that frequency. That's the thinking. I need to get wired up and studioified. How do we make this sound as natural as possible? So I've got Mike, my binaural head, and that is going to be the bulk of it. And then I've got, as I did with my floor tom videos, I've got a close mic. In this case, 57s on the toms, D112 on the kick, Beyer M201 on the snare. I modded this 57, kind of like a Granelli 57, if you've come across those, but with plumbing supplies, so it's like 50p. the 102.5. I'm going to do this one. Okay, so I'm going to mark the head here. Okay, so that lug has no tension on it. This is exciting, isn't it? 106.5, so I'm going to come down a quarter turn. There we go. I think largely the tests that I did in this first week were somewhat flawed because of that. I mean, that's just the nature of doing things, isn't it? But I thought it was a worthwhile kind of demonstration of, you know, not everything is a kind of unbridled journey to success. The other thing that I thought was really cool about the Tonewings, it felt like the tuning range expanded. It felt like I could tune this drum down and it would still maintain like that togetherness. So there's no muffling on this. And maybe I'd throw a bit of moon gel on it. Sounds pretty great, doesn't it? So I really feel like this drum is just, it sings. So there's still that same, if we go back to that beginning bit, that ring is still there. So that was the first session. So my thinkings with Mass came from, I bought a Gretsch kit. Well, I bought a lot of Gretsch drums, made a sample instrument, which is coming soon. Although by the time I've done this video, it might even be out. I made a sample instrument with these Gretsch drums, and it was a real deep dive into things. And I noticed that the drums that had the older Gretsch lugs, which are cast, they seem to be a bit sort of tighter in their frequency response versus the newer ones, which have kind of pressed lugs or a thinner casting. They're much lighter, don't have the springs in them. It's not the springs that's the difference. I did that experiment, but I was always like, I reckon it's the lugs and adding mass to things. It makes sense, like from a physics perspective, what's happening is that by adding mass, that thing is becoming heavier, it's harder to move, requires more energy to get movement. So that means you need longer waveforms to make that thing move, longer waveforms, lower pitch. So if you've got a drum that's got lots of high frequency stuff in it, it's possible that that shell is quite thin because it's easily resonated, you know, activated by the smaller waveforms, shorter waveforms. And so we get standing waves and stuff like that. So the idea and the concept of this is right. I noticed on the rack tom and the snare drum, it felt like there was a bigger tuning range. But that's where we're at the end of this first experimentation. I want to go back and do more experiments. It did seem to attenuate the sustain of some of the higher frequencies. I'm going to remove the hardware from the drum, all of the gaskets. Then we're going to do gasket free, and that's going to be our control. And then with the Tonewings, remove all of the gaskets from all of the drums. Then we're going to start again.